sir. Good evening, everybody. Please stand for flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Councilman Sarah says the prayer.
Heavenly Father, we have all gathered here this evening to watch over our city. Let us realize and understand the value that each person has to offer in the decisions we make tonight. Do not let our differences harden or embitter us, but let them make us patient so that we may broaden our ideas and deepen our understandings of the issues at hand. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing. Councilwoman Dew has something to...
I'd like to have a moment of silence for Mrs. Margaret Daniels, another one of our longtime matriarchs that we have lost in the recently. Mrs. Daniels had lived on the island, raised her sons, her grandchildren here. She was predeceased by her husband, John, or Tommy, and her sons, John and Jules, and she is survived by her son, retired U.S. Navy Captain James, her daughters-in-law, Amy and Bonnie, and her sister Loretta, and her Brigantine granddaughters, Jennifer and Julianne, as well as many other grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Would you like to have a moment of silence, please?
Thank you. As you might notice, our mayor is not with us tonight. He had an engagement at his school, which he is the superintendent of, and he couldn't get out of it. But he was in executive session as long as possible. So don't get scared. He'll be back. We're coming out of the executive session. I would like our city attorney, Mr. Cerny, to go over what we talked about in an executive session.
In executive session, the mayor and city council discussed certain issues touching upon the golf course. Specifically, there were contract discussions relating to the possibility of a new management contract. Additionally, there were discussions about potential land transfers, which would result if council chose to have a nonprofit operate the golf course. Additional information will be made available in these matters within the next 30 to 60 days. Council also discussed professional service contracts, specifically engineering contracts in regard to ongoing projects. The manager reported in terms of discussions that would facilitate the services that are currently being provided. No decision was made in regard to this discussion. Additional information will be made available in this within the next 30 days. Additionally, council received a litigation report from my office in regard to Brigantine's filing in Superior Court in regard to certain COA issues. It was reported that a conference took place in court on September 10, that the court anticipates signing certain orders dealing with scheduling and the status of the matter by September 18. Additionally, my office reported the status of a previously authorized vacant land inventory and the updating of the housing element. Additional information will be made available specifically in regard to the court matters following the issuance of an order on September 18.
Thank you, Mr. Cerny. Now, council will approve executive session minutes from July 1st, July 18th, and September 2nd, 2015. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Two of them are regular.
Second.
Any questions?
The minutes, one set of minutes are the executive session minutes, the 9/2/15. The July minutes are regular council meeting minutes.
Okay, can we make that correction, Lynn? Mr. Cerny? She says,
No, that's okay. It was just
oh, I'm sorry.
the way you
I'm
read
sorry.
it. You read it. They were all executive minutes. I just wanted to make that correction.
The
The 2
minute-
July or regular
Okay.
council meeting minutes.
Got it. Thank you. Well, Lynn wrote them down wrong for me, so we'll blame Lynn. Okay, make that correction. And anybody else has comments? Okay. Roll call, Lynn?
View,
Yes.
McClay,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes on the regular council meetings, abstain on the executive minutes.
DeLucre,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes. Okay. Need to approve the bill list and payroll expenses. We need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the bill list? See none? Lynn, can we have roll call, please?
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes. Public comment on agenda items only. Anybody wants to come up and speak, please limit it to, if you can. So if anybody wants to come up and speak on agenda items only. Yes, ma'am. I don't know that we're on an agenda. Did you say agenda items? Yes.
Yeah, no. No.
And we'll have public comments at the end.
Then we got public comment at the end. That's when. No, it's just on the agenda items only.
There's only 2 agenda items.
There's only a couple things, so we won't be that long.
No.
Okay, absolutely,
There's 2 public comment times now.
yes. Okay. I'm going to close the public comment. Okay, we have resolution 2015-201, real estate tax refund overpayment. 4101 West Brigantine Avenue, LLC, Mr. and Mrs. Weaver. Tax refund will be for $417.56 for the LLC. Mr. and Mrs. Weaver was $2692.76. Anybody have questions on the tax payment refund? Seeing none, can we have roll call?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Second.
View,
Yes.
McClay,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes.
DeLucre,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
motion carried.
Next we have on here is 2015-202, appointing Jim Rotella as municipal planner for post-Sandy planning grant Phase 2. Mr. Stinson, would you, do we need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. So, Mr. Stinson, would you please explain Mr. Rotella's status in this?
Yes. Thank you, sir. We have Jim Rotella as our grant consultant, and this resolution appoints Jim as our planner for post-Sandy planning grants, and really what Jim's role is, he helps us prepare the RFP and manage the grant. The RFP this time for the Phase 2 is for a master plan review and a review of our zoning ordinances. And what this resolution will do is allow Jim's fees, the cost for his work to prepare this RFP and help us through this process, will be able to be reimbursed through the grant.
Okay, thank you. Council have any questions?
Just to remind everybody, he's done us a great job and great service so far, and there's no reason to doubt that that will not continue, so we should move forward.
Since I've been on council, he's been outstanding, and we hired him from day one, and he's been fantastic, especially with the Sandy relief and everything else. So,
He does a very good job for us. He does guide us in this post-Sandy grant program, And again, this will allow his fees to be reimbursed through the grant, so it would be zero cost to the city.
Okay. Any other questions? Lynn, can we have roll call, please?
View,
Yes.
McClay,
Yes.
Bacardi,
Yes.
DeLucre,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay. Next, we have manager, council, committee discussions. List tonight is updating on 2014 paving projects. Ed?
Thank you. So we have a couple projects that are about to start. The 2014 paving project, if you remember, we awarded that right before the summer, and then in a meeting with the contractor decided that it would be best to hold off the construction till after the summer. There was a pre-construction meeting that occurred last week, and the contractor's looking to mobilize on Monday, weather permitting. So that project you'll see getting started next week, and it'll be about a 2-month project. It's, if you recall, it is Bayshore Avenue from 26th Street to 15th Street. Then there are many locations throughout the island. So these locations include the Sandy-related damages, so out on Harbor Beach Court, there's the Country Club, there's repairs on Brigantine Boulevard, there's repairs on Bayshore Avenue at 38th Street, that intersection that has the manhole that's sticking up that everybody bottoms out on now. So
Right.
I can give you a list if you'd like, but it's all over the island. The main portion, the main location is the Bayshore Avenue stretch from 26 to 15.
It seems like we're going to have a lot of road construction from now to next Memorial Day.
That except for the winter, but
Right.
because we also awarded the 200 block of 8th Street South,
Yeah, that's terrible.
and that I spoke with the contractor 2 days ago, and he's looking to have a pre-construction meeting next week, so that's going to be gearing up as well. I'll report more on that at the next council meeting. The other item that I'd like to bring council up to date is the demolition project. You may recall, council awarded a contract for the demolition of 7 unsafe structures. All the structures have been demolished. The contract has not been closed out yet, but the structures are down. The lots, for the most part, are graded. There may be one lot left that still has some minor work to be done, but that project is also nearing completion. What I am told from our tax collector, the cost of each site, the cost of the demolition of each site will be placed as a lien on the property, and that sale will go in March, so we will reimburse this cost through the tax lien sale by next March. So we would look at, more than likely, preparing another list and bringing back another bid to council to remove any remaining unsafe structures. So that is coming as well. The last item that I put on the list is an update on the streetscape project. And we held a meeting last week with many of the Central Business District property owners. About 12 to 14 came out to the meeting. First, I'd like to apologize to Vince and Lisa, who were on this steering committee, because we rescheduled the meeting. I had a mix-up with Jim Rotella and who was going to be notifying everyone. Jim notified the business owners, but not the members of council that were on that initial meeting. So it was my mistake, and I apologize. But the meeting went very well. We had a meeting with many of the businesses, and it was an opportunity for the business owners to meet the consultants, the engineer and the architect who will be doing the work. And likewise, it was an opportunity for the architect and the engineer to meet the business owners and hear their ideas, and as importantly, hear their concerns for the project. And the meeting went very well. After the meeting, after lunch, the architect, the engineer, and myself walked the project in its entirety from one side all the way up and then back on the other side. Many of the business owners came out to speak with us while we were walking by, and it was a good opportunity for all of us to really visualize the comments and the concerns that came up during the meeting, but also to see the project. So I thought the meeting was very, very productive. What's next is the architect and engineer will produce better base maps and conceptual plans, and we will meet again in about a month. And I promise you that I will make sure that you are aware of when that meeting is scheduled. It has not been scheduled yet. We're letting the architect and the engineer get their work together and give us a date when they'll have a product to present. But it was a very productive meeting, and certainly by the architect and the engineer's account, it was a very successful meeting, and we're excited about moving forward. So I'll keep you up to date on that as the next meeting is scheduled.
And, Ed, I have a question about the demolition of the unsafe structures. On 12th Street North in the Bay, was that home was part of that?
That's correct.
Right now, the bulkhead's actually open. Is the city going to repair that, or is that going to be the next property owner?
So right now, the homeowner or the property owner is being notified that they have an unsafe bulkhead, a non-compliant bulkhead, and they need to take action on that. If the city were to do something, it would be across the right-of-way, which would render that portion of the property, I would assume, unusable.
Right.
So we're not at that point. We're going to take the first step.
But if we went ahead and the person allowed us to tear down their house and put a lien against their property, what's the likelihood of them coming back and putting a bulkhead in?
Unlikely, but
Right.
I think they were trying to, I don't know how much I want to get into. I know there was some
Okay.
issues with the DEP
Okay.
that they were trying to work their way through. We actually extended the demolition hearings to give them time, I think 60 days, so that they could get through the DEP. Then I believe they changed attorneys, and then that was the end of the dialogue between us and them.
Yeah, we want to make sure that that unsafe bulkhead area, especially if we get some storms,
That's right.
I don't care how good a bulkhead all the way up, you have a hole in the bulkhead,
That's
it's
right.
no good.
So what I know, what Public Works has done and what we will continue to do is provide a berm in the right-of-way adjacent to that property that gives us some protection. But obviously, it's not
It's a good idea.
it's not the best.
Thank you.
Ed, what's happening with the library steps? The fence is up, it's down, it's open, it's closed. They look to be complete, but
So that today
We're going
they
to have
were-
a celebration, right?
Today, thank you for reminding me. I meant to actually have that update as well. Today they were installing the railings. So they will have final inspection. They called to the construction office for final inspection. I'm sure we can facilitate that to happen very quickly. Once that's passed, then the fence will be removed.
I think the rail's up.
The
when
rail
I
was
pulled
up today, yes. It's just not inspected yet.
Right.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one committee report, if Ed's done.
Okay.
The beach committee met last night. We had a typically good turnout. Met for a couple hours. There were 4 items that the committee is supporting or recommending to council for further action. I'll circulate an email tomorrow or Friday with more details, the real short version of the 4 items that the beach committee is recommending. The first is the committee is supporting the creation, or at least exploring, the creation of a new guarded beach at approximately Pepper Cove Lane along Ocean Drive West, which would be adjacent to the jetty. It would be the first, and at least initially, only guarded beach on that stretch of what we call the Cove Beach. The rationale for that, very briefly, is that people do swim there despite the signage against it and despite the inherent risks and the complications from the many different types of uses that happen on that stretch. It's felt, among other things, that establishing a guarded beach there would dramatically improve response time to the calls that happen, and we were told, a number of calls this past season in the Cove area plus probably other items that didn't result in calls, but, you know, which the lifeguards on the scene, if this goes forward, will be able to respond to much more quickly. So the recommendation on that will be for council to discuss it. I don't think it's something that would require any formal action in terms of resolutions or ordinances, but would probably require us directing various professionals to, you know, undertake investigations and to report back to us on the feasibility and cost and proposals of how to do it. The second thing, the committee supports switching the two, call them kiosks, that are presently at the entry points to the four-wheel drive beaches. You have the one at the end of Harbor Beach Boulevard, or actually Lagoon Boulevard, and the other one on Seaside. And it's felt that they're probably past their useful life, they're not particularly attractive, and that we could, at a reasonable cost, and it could come right from the Public Works budget, wouldn't be a problem. So, for a reasonable cost, we could probably come up with a much more attractive alternative there, more welcoming to people coming on the beach, and in conjunction with that, to perhaps improve the signage to four-wheel drive users who are entering the beach at those points. And we have signs there now, but they're kind of wordy and not that legible and probably largely ignored. And similarly, the handouts that we give to the four-wheel drive users are nice. They have a very nice map on them, but they're also wordy and probably don't accomplish the target goal of educating people very quickly about what is expected of them as a user, four-wheel drive user of the beach. So Beach Committee is also recommending that we look at doing something that's a little more maybe basic and user-friendly to communicate to people kind of the rules of the road that we expect them to follow when they're on the four-wheel drive beach. The third item is support for, this one would, if council wants to go forward with it at some point, this would require change to the code. To change the city code with respect to the ability, which you currently can do, to bring jet skis down onto the beach along the Cove Beach. Right now, if you have a permit, and perhaps if you're bold and don't have a permit, but if you have a permit, you can bring your jet ski down to the beach, and some number of people do take advantage of that, trailer them down or bring them down in trucks or in some other fashion. It was felt on balance that the benefit to the public at large is probably pretty minimal from allowing that, and it does add an element of complication and, you know, additional activity that is not really compatible with the other uses on the beach, particularly when it's such a popular beach and is already so crowded. So the recommendation on that is to have council consider changing our code to prohibit that. What that would mean, I believe, and you know, Ed, you can fill me in on this, but I think the consensus was that would mean that jet ski users could, of course, still launch from any private dock or private place, and the public launching would be available through the, or at the boat ramp down at 6th Street. Finally, the committee supports a program that John Doring may be able to describe in a little more detail to improve and extend the beach paths. The improvement part would come in, well, in sequence and in a couple different forms. We would be adding gravel to a certain portion, probably the most streetward portion of our beach paths, and then extending the path area using our existing mats and a new type of matting. And again, this would take a little time to phase in, but the net result would be that you would have much easier, should have much easier access at each of our beach paths that would take you further onto the beach, whereas now, you know, the unexpected result or side result of the beach improvement projects we've done and the fact that our beaches are growing is that our beaches are growing. And it's becoming kind of a long walk at a lot of the beaches through some very thick, soft sand for people to get down there. This won't completely alleviate that, but it will extend the easily traveled portion of the path further onto that section of beach. John, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, that was good, Rick.
Thank you, John. And that was it.
Before we move on, just a couple things I'd like to bring up. I think John Doring, Ed Stinson, and the mayor received a copy of this letter that I received from a resident on Beach Avenue regarding dogs on the north end beach, or in the seawall area where owners are not cleaning up after their dogs. And I want to know, did you get a chance to read this letter or respond to the concerned property owner?
So we did read it, and I forwarded it to the police department, asked them to reconcentrate patrols in that area and focus on dogs that shouldn't be on the beach.
Okay.
So yes, whether we responded, to be honest with you, I try to respond to every email.
Okay, well, I will
I can't
then
swear
try to
that I
reach
did,
out
but-
to this
okay.
property owner and let them know that you forwarded a letter over to the police department, and they're going to keep an eye out for that, because no dogs are permitted on regular beach up until September 30th? Is that the, okay. Okay, so that was one thing I wanted to bring up. The other thing was another letter I received from a resident, and I believe you also got a copy of it, or I got a copy of your letter, about parking on 12th Street South. It says that Police Chief Reed, Lieutenant Bennett, Superintendent of Public Works, would talk about different concerns about parking on 12th Street South. Did you get a copy of that letter?
So we did, this goes back a little bit, and
This is September 10th.
we've had conversation. It's a business that's asking for, I believe, 2-hour limit parking, correct? So we have talked about it. Yes, there's been some work that we've done, but what we have talked about in terms of a overall goal is that we will be coming to council with some idea on general parking. I'm going to try to lump all these parking questions and ideas into one meeting, one presentation to council, so we can get some direction. So,
Okay, so,
but we did address, to some extent, we did address that letter.
okay, I just wanted to be
Excuse me,
sure,
Mr.
since I got a copy of the letter, I want to be
what-
sure. That last email that was sent from the resident of Galloway, I was not on that email, so I just want to make sure that the ones I do get that I follow through with.
What's
And you can always
what's the
email me
12th Street
anytime you
North
want.
Parking? Just
In
what
front of
are
the doctor's office, I think,
Okay.
12th Street
South?
South,
Okay.
yes.
Yes,
There
I
are
have
2-hour parking limit signs there now, right? I'm pretty sure.
One other thing, the demolition of unsafe structures. Now, there are a lot of abandoned properties too, and it's starting to increase, I think, throughout the county. I know for a fact that 1101 Jenkins Parkway has been abandoned for over 4 years. No one has been in it since Sandy, and you know the property I'm talking about there. And the homes around that area, the property owners really take very good care of their property. You know, they invest money in their properties, and we have this one structure there that has been completely abandoned for 4 years. What can we do about it? I mean, I think the bank or whoever owns it, last I looked, it was a bank or a financial institution, but they're not maintaining the property. And if you look inside the property, I looked through the windows just to see, you have ceilings falling down, you have insulation, there's mold. What can we do about that unsafe structure? Because that's also unsafe.
So let's try to separate abandoned properties from unsafe structures. So there's certain criteria that need to be met for an unsafe structure, which takes us down that demolition route. The construction official is the authority to make that determination. I will share that I believe that property that you're discussing is on his, what he calls the B list for, the next round of demolition. But initially, so go back 4 years or however many years you said it has
Maybe
been
longer.
abandoned, it was not his, it was his determination that it was not an unsafe structure at that moment. So again, there's criteria that he must find that takes it into the category of unsafe structures, and that's per the UCC code. And he does that, and he has a list that he is following up on many properties. And when I say many properties, it's in better than 50 properties that are on his watch list. So he is keeping an eye on it. But again, it doesn't go to unsafe structure simply because it's abandoned.
Okay. So he will get a chance to go inside, or can he
That's
access
right.
the inside of the building?
He does what he needs to do to make sure that he gives it a fair evaluation and makes the determination, when he can. So he's
Okay.
watching it, but again, I believe that property is on the list,
Okay.
on his B list.
Is
There-
there any way that we should consider, or that maybe other municipalities have, of folding in these zombie properties into unsafe structures?
There was a
so
workshop
that
somewhere
we can move
today.
quicker, or make it a little more?
Zombie properties,
Zombie
as
properties.
you probably are aware of, that people just abandoned them and
Just
left.
them.
Yeah, there was a workshop out at the Canali Center today. I saw it in the press this morning
Okay.
on how to deal with these zombie properties all over the county.
Right. So I did see that headline.
Yeah.
I'll get with the construction official, and I'll talk with Fred. We'll make sure that as quickly as is permissible, that we move on properties, or at least put them to the list of unsafe structures.
Okay, and one other thing, I know I talked to you about it, about recording and posting council meetings on our website, or at least having a link to the archives of our council meetings. And I wanted to find out who records the meetings and who posts them, and how can we get them up to date?
So Lieutenant Bennett has been the person responsible for recording and posting the council meetings onto the web. He told me after you asked, I asked Jim, or I actually looked into it, because to be honest with you, I didn't know it was being done, and therefore I didn't know who was the person doing it. But we found out it is Lieutenant Bennett. He's been doing it for a little over a year. Jennifer Blumenthal had asked him to do it last year at some point. He told me that he had some mechanical and internet issues with the system, and that he's working it out. I think there is actually some problem even today, some remnant problem, but in his letter he tells me that he thought it was worked out, and that today's council meeting would be recorded and posted to the web. But the last month or months that were not posted, they were not recorded and will not be posted to the web.
Okay, and when he does post, it just says like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Could he please put the date of the council meeting?
So I asked him
So
to
it's
look
easier?
into that, because that's how, as I showed you in my office, many of the meetings last year were posted same way. So he said he would look into how he can label them with a date. So
Okay,
Jim's a very creative and intelligent person. I'm sure if there's a way, he'll figure that out.
all right. But we do have recordings of the meetings, audio
That's
recordings?
correct. We have Lynn's recordings.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else?
I do, yeah.
Council?
I have a request.
Okay.
And I talked to you about this before, but I guess at the seawall, there's 3 handicap parking spots, and I had a request that if we could repaint the curbs blue, that would go a
So-
long way.
John and I are going to take a look at that either tomorrow or Friday, and whatever needs to be done will be done.
All right, perfect, thank you.
I have one other quick question, and this might be for John. John, in the public parks, like at the ball fields and everything, are there signs posted for no smoking? Okay.
There's numerous signs on all city property,
All right.
out in front of City Hall, all parks, football field.
I was down at the
baseball
football field, and there were quite a few
Yes.
people smoking in the area. Okay,
field. That was council's.
right, we just passed that.
Right. If they see it,
Okay,
it's against the ordinance.
all right, thank you.
Okay, anybody else from council? See none? We're going to close the manager-council discussion, and we're going to move into public comment. Anybody from the public like to speak on anything that I guess is good for Brigantine or good for themselves? Please come up to the microphone, state your name and address, and try to keep it to 5 minutes. Start the time now, Lynn.
I'm Janice Sidorowitz. You need the address?
Yes.
463 West Shore Drive.
Grace Ketterer, 125 45th Street South.
Okay.
Grace is going to read a letter. We have a petition that was in circulation for 2 weeks.
Janice?
I'd like to read it.
Janice?
Just come closer
right
to
to
the
the
microphone,
Oh, I'm sorry.
so everybody at home can.
And we have copies for all of you. We'd like to read this so it's in the public record, and then I'll give you all copies, and Mr. Stinson, if you'd like.
Okay, great.
Okay, this is just the background of the dog park. The dog park on the 42nd Street complex has been enjoyed daily by residents and visitors, both at Visit Brigantine. There's shade, some benches, a water hose for water. It's very basic. Am I going too fast?
Yes.
Usage increases during the summer months. Every year, there's someone who uses, every day during the year, there's someone at the park. It could be early in the morning, it could be in the afternoon. There are regulars, and many are senior citizens who appreciate a place to bring their dogs for exercise and socialization. The dog park was constructed in full with funds donated by a private citizen. The city did not contribute funds for this park. Memorial bricks at $100 were advertised as fundraisers initially and installed at the entrance. The City of Brigantine collects an annual fee from people who wish to use the park's electronic entrances to enter the park. Proof of rabies is required. Dogs are not admitted that are aggressive, and owners must supervise their dogs at all times. The only cost to the City of Brigantine is the cost of mowing the grass once a week by the Public Works Department, connecting and disconnecting the water supply, and emptying and refilling 2 waste disposals in the park. The current situation, normal wear and tear of a dog park is to be expected. This is normal use by dogs and people. Much of the grass is worn. The ground is uneven and it floods quickly. There are some raised tree stumps that were never removed. Although it's discouraged, dogs sometimes dig holes, but there are no tools available to correct the situation. The action and support requested, the city was able to allocate funds to help build Shark Park. The dog park requests funds to be allocated to make some permanent improvements to the dog park. We have suggested 2 possible solutions to this. One is temporary, the other is permanent. On a permanent basis, which may be a long-term plan, request professional competitive quotes to install permanent dog park AstroTurf or other acceptable dog park surfacing. This is sanitary and cannot be destroyed by the dogs. It comes with a warranty of 10 years. It is used in many cities. It looks great. We have attachments and photographs to show you. We want the cost to be presented at the annual budget hearing and covered by the city using any grants or loans available. If there are any Sandy funds available, this would not be a very high expense and would help the Public Works Department save man-hours. The alternative, allocate an expense to regrade the dog park to improve the drainage during storms, remove the old stumps, and reseed the grass annually, which would just be maintenance.
Okay,
And that's it.
Shall I pass each one?
please.
It includes, the second part is the petition signatures. We have 44 signatures in 2 weeks. We kind of rushed this
Thank you.
because of planning season.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome. There you go.
Thank you.
I have one for Ms. Jones.
John, how difficult it would be to, I guess you know the problems down there with the grading and everything?
Yes. We plan on doing we did some grading down there last week. In October, we plan on closing the park and putting some soil in and reseeding it. With that, I spoke to Janice earlier tonight. It should be closed for quite a few months till the new seed gets established.
Right.
So we're waiting till the end of September, so at least they'll be able to legally walk the dogs on the beach, so they'll still have a place to go.
When I heard about the problem, I went down there just to see, And I guess it is just when it rains, certain areas, because it's not completely level, certain areas puddle,
Thank you.
which makes it very muddy, and the grass gets torn out, and it just turns into a mucky mess. I don't know that all the reason for it being unlevel, I don't know if it's all because of the dogs, I don't know. But it is very unsafe to walk on, and I could see how anybody can twist their ankle and fall. It's that bumpy, the terrain. I had to go see it for myself. There is one stump that I did recognize. I don't know how that could come out, but that's rather high. That's definitely a tripper and dangerous to any senior or anybody in the park. As far as the pool where they dump, that's not causing a lot of the mud and puddles, because I
Right.
saw where that is.
We
That's
dump
further
to the
down.
street.
Yeah, but definitely if that can be graded somehow, just to make it safe, fill it in, grow some grass. Is seed the only option as far as getting grass to grow quicker?
Whatever.
What is that type of grass that does really well? We,
You mean zoysia?
I have
Something like that?
experience
Or
with this
St.
because I
Augustine?
had my
Yes.
backyard, Jim Crane do my backyard. I put a foot, I raised my backyard a foot because it had sunk from sandy damage. And my lawn person got this like farm grass, which came up beautifully, and the dogs love it. They graze on this stuff. But on whatever grass you use on the ballparks, I think would be the same. But I brought Jim over there to take a look at this, to get an idea of how much grading and dirt we would need, topsoil I'm talking. And he said 2 dump trucks worth in order to make, because it's the center of the dog park from the traffic of the dogs, you know, you're talking 8 to 10 dogs all summer running, and people going back towards the pools or to pick up poop or whatever, has caused the park is like a valley now. And so it's like a slip and slide after a rain. A lot of us won't go there for 2 days after a rain. It's just really, it's unusable. The dogs are filthy, muddy, and it's dangerous to walk on. So I think with Public Works, good work, and a couple of dump trucks of dirt, whatever seed you normally use, what I see is just raising up and checking the sprinkler heads. They could do, the large dog park is the park that's damaged. The small dog park nobody uses, so it's pristine at this moment. So we could move into that because there are a lot less dogs in the winter.
Right.
A lot of us will go to the beach and there's just fewer people. And I think that rather than close the whole park, because there are some people who really can't walk on the beach.
Right.
They need the benches and all to let their dogs run around. So we could move over to the small dog area, just lock down, you know, the swipe car, they can, however he wants to do it, put a big chain or something on it, and let that grass have time to come in, okay, and fertilize. Thank you very much. I
Okay.
also, let me give you these, had estimates from someone who does, art of the dog, is called dog turf, because it doesn't have any of that.
That's turf, right?
Right,
Okay.
and I'll give you the photographs of this stuff, it's beautiful. This is the research we did, and this is what it can look like.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this could look really beautiful and be a real asset to the city. As it is now, it looks terrible. I mean, you know, we have a lot of wealthy summer people
Does
coming in.
John have that?
No,
I mean,
if you want-
why don't you
if
give that to John? He would be
Sure.
he's the expert on dog
All right.
turf.
the dog park does generate revenue. It brings in revenue from its membership fees. So I think the yearly maintenance shouldn't be any expense at all to the city, or minimal at that.
We all feel so desperate about this that we're willing to have the fees raised. That's how strongly, I mean, in
Let's
2
vote
weeks,
on
I
that
got
right now.
44 right? 44 signatures, it was easy.
Right.
And I can't reach everybody,
Right.
you know, because I only go in the morning. So we really need something done on it, and I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, John, if you need anything, if you need some truckloads of dirt, you know I can get you to some truckloads of dirt. I'm willing to do that for the dog park and everything. If you want to grade it out and have them move into the other one, if, you know, the little one, if that's possible. You know, if you can supply the labor, I'll supply materials. How's that?
Take you up on that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, anybody else from the public? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Phillips?
Ann H. Phillips, 308 27th Street, speaking for the Brigantine Taxpayers Association on two topics. And I ask that you respond to the comments after I finish my 5 minutes. Thank you. Number one, it's important that all Brigantine taxpayers know what their government is doing. And one means of doing this is to watch their government in action at council meetings other than at the time of the meeting. This was possible at no cost to the taxpayers. Now, this access to internet coverage of the meetings is no longer available. This needs to be and must be resumed. Why was it discontinued? 2, our second topic is the council approved 3-2 vote of the new police contract, approved with a deplorable and planned lack of information and discussion for and with the public. Please take notes of these references to the contract. I'm going to give page numbers as well as the information on that page. Page 25, it says, quote, beginning January 1st, 2015, the annual base salaries are to be paid for the following employees covered by this agreement, unquote. Steps and salaries are listed. Immediately above on the page are the steps and salaries for 2013 and 14, which are higher than those in 2015 and 16. Question, are there paybacks of the salaries paid since January the 1st, 2015 that are more than those effective in 2015? Page 26D. Base salary in the new contract now includes holiday pay, education stipends, and longevity. These amounts will increase the amount eligible for pensions, a system already in dire straits, thus affecting and increasing the tax money we must pay, the city must pay, the taxpayers must pay to the state. Also, what defines a base salary by state law? How much can you put in it? Page 28. Longevity is not frozen as so often proclaimed. Yes, it's good news. New hires won't receive it, but it continues to accumulate. What has been earned remains and grow by a fixed amount instead of a percentage, which for those with at least 11 years of employment amounts to a nice extra paycheck up to $9,300. As of last September's employee salary list, taxpayers paid for that year almost $400,000 or $1 million over a 3-year period just for longevity. It's a bad, outdated, expensive practice for just being in the job. And I might add, it was a golden opportunity during these contract negotiations to just remove it as much as legally possible. That wasn't done. Page 35, sick leave continues to accumulate. It should not. The private sector doesn't allow it. Page 38, this connects to page 35, which is an unnecessary burden on the taxpayers. Quote, existing employees hired prior to May 2nd, 2010, which is the date of the state statute governing this, will have terminal leave capped at the greater of $50,000 or the dollar value of each employee's accrued sick time as of the 1st of January 2015. So that means an employee will get at least $50,000 for unused sick time. And why is the effective date January the 1st, 2015, when this agreement is effective as of January 1st, 2013, since the previous contract expired at the end of 2012? Page 38. Terminal leave shall be paid at the employee's annual rate of pay at the beginning of the terminal leave period, which is at his or her highest pay. That's something to be considered. Page 60, under the health plan, I'm assuming this is a state law, but it isn't clear. What is Chapter 78? G, Please give evidence for the statement that this contract will save $245,000 per new employee plus $12,000 per new employee over the 15-year period. H, what is the cost to the city of health benefits and pension contributions for the years of this contract? And I, what is being planned to deal with what's coming down the road, which is called the Cadillac tax regarding health benefits? I realize, I think I got that in with my 5 minutes.
Very good, Mrs.
But
Phillips.
it's a long list, but I think these are crucial issues. Yes, the contract was passed. However, you all are accountable for it, and it reminds me of Obamacare. You have to know what's in it to read it after it was approved. Well, it's how the public learned about it. And these are questions which have come to our attention and which we think raise some questions that need to be asked. After all, this contract, I believe, will be renewed or reviewed again beginning in 2016, and you're going to go through it, and you also have a fire contract. So these questions, I think, need to have some discussion among council members and information to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Phillips. Anybody else from the public?
I will be interested to hear what you have to say, I guess, at the next council meeting, if you don't have a time to do it now.
Well, we don't have the contract in front of us. You said page this, page that. I mean, Mr. Stinson, if you want to comment on any of these allegations?
So I'll ask Ms. Phillips if she would to email me that list so that I can read it and have the proper time to give her an answer. I will say, with respect to her first comment about the televising of the meetings, I did address that with, I think Councilwoman McClay brought it up. We had some equipment problems.
Yeah, we just talked about that.
Right, so it was not an intentional stoppage of posting the meetings. We had equipment problems and internet problems, and they are being worked on and will be corrected, and the meetings will be posted as soon as they're corrected, hopefully even tonight. With respect to the contract.
Excuse me, on that, there's two different things. One is the posting and the other is the direct real-time access. Are they wrapped up together?
So they are, as I understand it, so I'm sketchy on this. Lieutenant Bennett did explain it to me, but there's a piece of equipment that is added on to in this live stream that does the recording and does the uploading to the web or to the YouTube channel. So there was a problem with the internet connection, and there was also a problem with that piece of equipment. With respect to the PBA contract, as I said, if Ms. Phillips sends me an email with the questions, I'll be able to provide a more thorough answer, but I will remind Ms. Phillips, council, and the public that this is a negotiation process, that we did discuss the longevity and eliminating the longevity, and that was not successful in the negotiations. So as much as we all agree that we would like to have longevity out, it was my recommendation, based on our auditor and our bond counsel, that the items that we were successful in obtaining in this negotiation far outweighed the, I'll call it a detriment, of allowing longevity to continue. So the success of tripling the salary guide, the success of eliminating longevity for new hires, even the capping of the terminal payouts, they are improvements, and they were, at least based on the recommendations of our professionals, significant improvements that we are unlikely to realize in the arbitration process. So we took the negotiations as far as we could, with the primary goal of extending the salary guide, which we were successful doing, with another primary goal of eliminating longevity for new hires, which we were successful in doing. And there were several other successes that we had. We were unsuccessful in eliminating longevity, I will admit that. However, the option was, at this point, take that contract with those successes that our professionals are saying it's unlikely you will see in arbitration, or take our chance, roll the dice, and go to arbitration and pay an attorney, the money to take it to arbitration and stand the risk that the arbitrator may not give you the tripling of the salary guide, which we all know. I mean, all the contracts, all the arbitration rulings are on the PERC website. We see them, the PBA sees them, the fire department, everybody sees those. So you see what the general awards are. And I can tell you that there were no awards that tripled the salary guides. There were awards that extended the salary guides, but nothing near tripling. So given that the recommendation that that's the primary goal, we were successful in doing it, that's where it went. But like I said, I don't want to address the questions because I was writing, Mrs. Phillips was reading quickly. I don't have the contract in front of me, but if she emails it to me, I will do my best to provide the answers.
You get that, Mrs. Phillips? Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to just take a few minutes and respond to Mrs. Phillips. I know you mentioned Chapter 78, that you didn't know what that was. It is a state statute that was passed in 2010, and there's a lot of things in Chapter 78. One is that all accrued time cannot exceed $15,000. And the premium sharing in health insurance, that's also included in the Chapter 78. So does that answer your question on that? You know how I voted, you know what my position was on longevity, and I know it's hard to end longevity, but I was hoping that we could do a little better job and maybe freeze it. I know that in the newspaper, in several articles, it says that for current employees, longevity has been frozen, but yes, it was frozen at a fixed dollar amount, but it still has those incremental increases. So that was one thing that I had hoped we could have done better on, but unfortunately, it is what it is, and it is better, this contract, but hopefully in the next contract, we can work on actually freezing longevity for current employees, because I believe that's what the trend is out there.
I'd also like to just make a comment about the Cadillac tax. A lot of people are just crossing their fingers and seeing how the general election goes next year, and if there's going to be a promise to do away with it. Okay? There are only two things that can happen with the Cadillac tax. Either the health benefits that we offer will be trimmed substantially so that they are not Cadillac plans, or the city will end up paying the tax. That's the only two choices there are so far. I don't think it's particularly wise that we would wait to see how the general election goes, because anybody can promise anything during a campaign. Whether Congress, with all its maneuvering and things that Congress does, would come up to that score or even then go to the Supreme Court, as happened before, remains to be seen. But there are only two things that can happen with it. It only comes back to the taxpayer if we're not successful, or if we continue to offer the degree of coverage that we do now. If we change the health plans to be more standard with the general population, then we will not be subject to the Cadillac tax.
And if I touch on the 2 points that Mrs. Phillips made. First, with respect to the meetings and their availability online, I accept what I'm hearing about mechanical and other issues, but it's a little disturbing that it took so long for this issue to be identified to you as the manager, and that apparently it took an inquiry from Councilwoman Clay to even bring this to light, when it sounds like for many months these meetings have not been available through YouTube or through the mechanism that they had been in the past. So I trust, Ed, that you'll stay on top of that. And related to that, do we have, or I think we do have, a consultant that does some website-related work for us, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We have the SJTA that manages our website, correct.
Does any part of that contract, and if you don't know, it's okay, we can revisit it at the next meeting, but if you know, does any part of that contract involve responsibility for posting items such as, it would be, I guess, a link to the YouTube coverage of our meetings?
So My understanding is we send them what we want posted and what we want removed, and they take that action. With respect to the video, as I understand it, and again, it's from Lieutenant Bennett, and I will yield to Tim if you have more information, but we, through Lieutenant Bennett, we post the videos to the YouTube channel that was created, the Brigantine YouTube channel, and we have a link on our website that takes people to that YouTube channel. So the SJTA has, as I understand it, nothing to do with the uploading of that video. So there's a component that was added in line to the live stream that does the recording and facilitates the uploading. How much involvement Lieutenant Bennett has, I'm not exactly sure, but I do have the letter, as I said, that we had some problems with that piece of equipment and with the internet connection there. So, but he was working on it, and it'll be fixed.
If you have something you wanted to add to that.
Two different things. You have the website and you have the videos. They're totally different.
Okay. So
Like tonight there's a problem. The problem is if Lieutenant Bennett has to go in there manually and record it tonight, and like tonight there was a glitch, it's gonna knock it off. So if he's not watching it or not by it, because what we have is it's a free version on Ustream. So once it's recorded on there, Lieutenant Bennett has to go back on and manually upload it to YouTube. If like tonight when it got bumped, earlier tonight it wasn't recording, we got a lot of calls that it wasn't recording tonight, it's going to shut it off on Ustream. At the time when we set it up, it was free, and the manager didn't want to spend any money to have it automated, which would cost a substantial amount of money.
What's substantial?
Do you remember?
Probably be a couple $1,000s for the company to set up, for them to do it, the service fee. So myself and Lieutenant Bennett at the time, if he didn't do it, I would do it. We'd go back and forth, but
It sounds like going forward, we have a system that is prone to glitches and that requires a lot of hands-on attention to properly post these things, and even then, no guarantee that it's going to be successfully posted.
exactly.
So in the long run, it may be less
Allows the
expensive.
system.
It may be less expensive for us to pay for it. I mean, because that's less man hours for you and Lieutenant Bennett
It's not.
doing that. So it may pan out that in the long run, it would be cost effective. I mean, it's certainly cost effective as far as transparency and, good citizen relationships with the government, to do that. So maybe we should take a second look at that.
And then the other point that Mrs. Phillips made, I wanted to touch on about the vote at the last meeting on the contract. I had to leave the meeting, as you may know, so I was not here for the discussion, so I won't comment on what was or wasn't said by anybody with respect to the contract. Before I left, though, I did say, and I'll say it again now, I don't understand how we could have any type of public discussion if the public didn't have in hand the actual contract that we were going to be voting on that night. You simply can't do that. Here's the agreement. It's about 60 pages or so. The public can't possibly ask informed questions if you don't have the contract there, so that when there's discussion happening, you can refer to the parts of the contract that people are talking about. And that still matters, because we have, at some point in the not-too-distant future, I would imagine, we'll be having the firefighters' contracts coming before us, and other contracts are now probably coming to a close that were negotiated over the past couple of years. I think we need to rethink, as a council, what it is that we make available to people. And I understand that we don't and we can't provide copies of these things while they're being negotiated, but when it comes to us in this form, the negotiating is done. At that point, we're voting yes or no. We're discussing it in whatever level of detail we do. For the public to be involved in any kind of meaningful way, they absolutely have to have the ability to look at that very same contract that we're about to vote on. So when I left, those contracts weren't available. I assume the night proceeded without copies of the contract being available to the public. That, to me, kind of makes the public participation piece of it a joke. Beyond that, I'm not going to comment on the substance of the contract, except to note that, and this is important, the contract only runs through 2016. Yes, having additional steps is a positive, no question about it. But remember, after 2016, in this contract, everything's back on the table. So the only way projected savings that are projected over a long period of time ever come to pass is if once you move in that direction, you continue moving that direction, and in my view, you accelerate the process. And finally, the Cadillac tax is not an insignificant thing, because obviously health benefits are very important to the employees, and the level of coverage that you have and the cost, even though there's now contributions, these are important things and an important part of the compensation package for the employees. This contract, as I mentioned, ends in 2016. We'll be negotiating probably not very far down the line in the course of 2016 for the contract that will run 2017 through 2020. That, during the next, assuming it's another 4-year contract, during that period of time, unless there's some change, and as Councilman Picardi said, it's unwise to count on change coming out of Washington. You should assume that what exists now will continue to exist. It is the city, not the employees, but the city that bears the brunt of this Cadillac tax. So as Councilman Picardi correctly points out, you know, you're facing a situation in the next contract cycle for the police where you're going to either be faced with a substantial change, a diminishment in the level of health benefits coverage, or a substantial increase in the cost to the city over and above what you already pay for the health insurance, because this is, in fact, a tax on top of all that. I think that's an issue that we needed to be addressing and to come to grips with, not just for the police in this contract, but for a while now in all the contracts. We're kicking that can down the road. I don't get it. I don't see where there's any payoff in that, because, again, you're either going to be, you're going to have two lousy choices. It's going to be the choice of telling the employees your benefits are being dramatically changed for the worse, or you're telling the taxpayers, we're taking a big hit here because we waited too long and didn't attempt before it was the 11th hour to negotiate this thing. So, not specific to the police contract, common to all our contracts. I think that's an issue that we are way late in addressing.
I think it's pretty safe to say, though, that if the Cadillac tax, if we were forced to pay that, it wouldn't be sustainable as far as the city's budget is concerned without severe cuts across the board in services. Either that or there would be a big jump in the city budget, meaning taxes, big. Because it's a 40% tax, which is just outrageous to begin with. But.
Oh, you voted, right? Okay, thank you for your comments, Councilman Sarah.
Yeah, in regards to contract negotiations, I know when you come from different perspectives, everybody goes into negotiations with different goals and different ideas. And I know longevity is important to a lot of people, and I would never want to take away from that. You know, but you also have to look at contract negotiations as being fluid. Sometimes there's opportunities to capitalize on other things, and you have to start to look at the long term. When somebody has something, when they have a benefit that they already have in the contract, it's very hard to get them to give that up. You know, you need a high level of understanding, or there's got to be something even greater that they want. So I know that issue was explored. I know that it was talked about, and we try to do our best with that. But I think in other areas of the contracts, we made substantial gains that the city of Brigantine will forever profit from. I mean, and that's something that we got to focus on. So although we may not achieve all of our goals, we still achieved a lot of goals with this contract that had a significant savings for the city. And I don't want to focus on one issue and take away from the others. I think you need to look at it in the whole picture. So I think you gotta take it in context. And this is my belief with contracts. Every contract you negotiate, no matter what side you're on, positions you for the next contract you're going to negotiate. You look at the trends, you look what's coming out of PERC, you look at arbitration rulings. You can see the pendulum starting to swing the other way. And what we need to do is start to strategize about how we kind of move in that direction in a way that matters. I know when it comes to healthcare costs, I know a lot of times the demand is that the city just cut it, change it, come to compliance, whatever it is we need to do. But my understanding with most contracts, there's usually clauses in there, and I don't know specifically, not looking at every contract, that says that the city or the provider has to offer equal to or greater benefits. So it's something that needs to be negotiated. So, and I don't know where that was on the table with this negotiations, but there are things that we were able to do and move forward on. And I'm sure as things develop with the next contract coming up, we'll be in a position to do that. So I want people to think about this as not a single contract, but a series of contracts from where we were and where we're trying to get to.
Thank you, Vince. I would just like to say, Mr. Stinson, and to the police department, like I said before, you guys did one heck of a job bringing in a contract that saves the taxpayers, not tomorrow, not the next day, but for years to come, a lot of money. And you're going to start negotiating again within a year. And, the Cadillac tax, I don't think you should negotiate a Cadillac tax, whether you know it's coming or you don't know it's coming in 2015. Because you have to start negotiating again. So that's probably going to be a big subject with you. I'm not going to get into negotiations because the next year we'll start hollering, but it sounds like we already started negotiations for 2016 with the council and with the public tonight. And I appreciate, transparency and everything, but we had to take advice from our attorney that night that we could not hand out that contract until we voted on it. If I'm wrong, Mr. Cerny, tell me I'm wrong, but that was my understanding. So as a body, if we're all attorneys up here or all business people, whatever we are, we have to take the advice of the attorney for the city of Brigantine because he has the best interests of the city of Brigantine and this council. We were not trying to hide anything. There's no conspiracy theories. People watch too much Law and Order, I guess. But there's nothing to be scared of. We negotiated. Mr. Stinson and the PBA negotiated a great contract. I hope you do the same with the fire department, and I know you're in negotiations with that. But when it comes down to 2016, I think you already have your marching orders is about the Cadillac tax, and hopefully it's not here in that particular time, hopefully there's a change in Washington. But with that, I would like to see if any more comments from the council. If not, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do you want to close the public comment portion?
Yeah, you might have had some more
Oh, any more public?
Oh,
You didn't close the...
I think someone
We have
has
to
their hand
close.
up.
Oh, Joan, I'm sorry. We're up here so long, I thought we're still in the council meeting. I apologize.
Joan Reese Evans, 1419 Bayshore Avenue. I just want to ask one question, and that is, when are we going to hear the options for the golf course?
Well, we talked about it in the executive session tonight, and
Yeah.
there's different options that we're talking about.
When are you going to make them public?
As soon as we sit down, Mr. Stinson has to get us all information, more information, and we're going to make it soon because we have to do it before the end of the year.
Yeah.
So right now, we don't have a date. I don't know if it's going to be next meeting, the week, or the meeting afterwards.
Are we going to have a general meeting for the public?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're going to have a meeting, a council meeting, and we're going to talk about the golf course. It's going to be on our agenda. And,
Is there going to be a public meeting?
well, the
Not
public
a
meeting is our council meeting, you know.
Aside from the council meeting.
I don't think,
Aside
you
from
know,
the council meeting.
I don't think any, you know, unless somebody wants to come up with an idea that we have to
Well, if
go
there-
to the city hall, the school or something like that. But you know, if everybody wants to come, if it's too big, we'll move it to another venue. So, but right now, it sounds like we'll just have a council meeting, we'll have it on the agenda. You'll be able to speak about it, and just like any other ordinance we put out there.
Are you going to give us some documentation before the meeting?
Well, we'll be in the package like we usually do. I mean, I don't know if that's under negotiations or anything like that, Fred. It would be out there for the public, you know, and we'll give you the list of what we're going to do, what the council has agreed to, and give you the facts and figures.
What the council has agreed to, but we're not going to be able to put input.
Yes, you will be able to do input.
No, we won't come to an agreement. I mean, we'll be able to explain what the options are.
The options are.
And what the options entail.
You'll have it in your
and hopefully,
package under the agenda.
you know, what the implications of all those are.
And then under, you know, public comment.
And we can
and-
have some facts and figures
Yes,
at that time.
yes,
can we?
absolutely.
To know how much we're going to have to put in the budget for next year.
Right,
To
that's correct.
cover, you know, any shortfalls.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's input. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Anybody else from the public? Seeing none, I want to close the public session. Any other comments from council?
Just a quick announcement, this Saturday, September 19th, there is a beach cleanup. Clean Communities has a beach cleanup. Registration starts around 8:30, and you got to get there nice and early. There's free gifts, giveaways, refreshments will be served when you come out for the beach cleanup, and that's at 16th and Ocean, and that's Saturday morning. Also, 17th and Ocean in the parking lot on Ocean Avenue is a free shredding. The shredding truck will be there. You can bring any documents you want to get rid of, shred, secure documents from 9 to noon. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Anybody else from council?
Yeah,
Vince?
Cultural Arts Commission just recently held a painting event, and we had an artist come in and work with us. And I can tell you myself and some other people who were there never painted before, and I can tell you it was an absolutely great event. I was really impressed with the quality of work that we were all able to put out. And I know if we do this event again, I would definitely want the public to come out. We had probably about 25 people. I know Lynn was there, and the artwork that came out was really great. So the Cultural Arts is really doing some fun things here in Brigantine.
Okay, thank you, Vince. Anybody else? I would like to thank council for not picking on the new guy tonight, running the meeting, you know, and I appreciate everybody. We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you for everybody for watching us at your council at work, and have a good night. Watch the debate.